we are now streaming.
Very cool.
So, and I've got what I'm gonna do is once the stream is about 10 to 15 seconds behind. Um, so if you want the stream to see what it looks like, I will put a link in the Skype chat.
Okay.
There you go. So that is there.
Great.
And ooh, oh
Probably shouldn't watch that. I'll get distracted by it.
yeah, yeah. Well, and if you have it up, just you probably want the audio down because otherwise
Right.
you will get a
Feedback.
nice echo.
And it messes with your head talking and then watching the video 15 seconds behind.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that would give me major problems. I'm not.
It does me anyway.
I'll just try to live in the present.
Good luck with that. I need
All
this.
right.
Okay. Looks like. Let me make sure everything. Okay, Dennis, can I have you give me like a testing?
Testing.
Perfect. And I already know John's good because he was on earlier.
Still don't want a testing?
Nope,
I was ready
because
for testing.
I don't like you anymore.
Nobody does. It's okay.
All right, I think we are ready to start. So Dennis
Great.
will have like just a little intro
Yeah.
here, and then we will introduce you and get started from there.
Very cool.
Everybody ready?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna start in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to Geekvice episode 148, proving that any vice with enough geek can become a virtue. My name's Morph, that man's Kip, and we're here with a special guest of ours, the founder of Bellwether Games, Dennis Hoyle. Welcome to the show, Dennis.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on. The first question I have to ask is, are you part of the Hoyle card family?
I am not. No.
Unfortunately,
No, but
right?
there is a fun story about that though.
Oh,
If we get to that.
we have to hear about that. You got to lead us off with that.
Uh, Long ago, we actually traveled to the headquarters of the company because there was my dad owned Hoyle.com basically way back in the day when the internet was just becoming a thing, and so there was some conversations that were had between the company and my dad, and I had the pleasure of going with him when I was a kid to
Oh, that
for
that
that.
is cool.
So yeah,
That is, it's not a very common name, I wouldn't think. So
no,
that's just the fact that it's spelled exactly the same. And
yeah,
hey, maybe
yeah.
one day.
Every now and then I throw in there, this is the rules of the game according to Hoyle, according to me. So I can do that kind of thing.
That's perfect. That is perfect. So, why don't you tell us a little bit before we get into? We've got you on because you guys have Bellwether Games has a Kickstarter up called Windup War. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about Bellwether Games? What is
Sure.
Bellwether Games?
Yeah, Bellwether Games is a really small publishing company. It's pretty much just me, and we've published. We have 2 games in store right now. We have Antidote. That was the first one that we kickstarted in 2014, and Antidote's been really, really popular and just keeps on selling, and people have been giving us great feedback on it. And then we also published a game in 2015. It came out this past year called Swamped, and game designer Ben Gerber, we signed him on to do that. feedback on it, and then this past year we also published. We've really amped up the whole Kickstarter efforts and ran this the third Kickstarter project we've ran in the last 6 months.
Wow!
So Windup War is the third of 3. We did one in May for a game called The Princess and the Goblin, and that was successful. And then we did one in July for a game called Cold Water Crown, which was designed by Brian Surrey, the designer of Paradox.
Okay.
And that's a fantastic game. And then Windup War is those, and Katie Cat and Jess Chu, they designed that, and so I signed them on to do the design, and now we're in the middle of the Kickstarter and having a great time with it.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, and if anybody wants to check out any of those games, they can find them on your website, right?
Sure. Yeah, bellwethergames.com.
Perfect. So, okay, now I was in getting prepped for this, I was reading through your website, and you have a nice little thing about what is a bellwether.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that,
Yeah.
and why you picked this name Bellwether?
Well, it's a unique image is part of the initial appeal to it. It's a unique name, but it's also a real thing. So sometimes people they misspell the word constantly because it's not a very frequent word in our normal everyday language.
Yeah.
But you'll see it especially pop up in news articles and things like that. And the word means basically a leader, or an omen, like a positive omen of things that are coming still yet to come. So an actual bellwether is a ram it's part of a flock of sheep, and the ram has a bell around its neck, and as it walks, it makes a sound, and the sheep follow the sound of the bell. So that's what a bellwether is, and it's come to mean, a positive omen. And so it makes sense then that the company that we have going is we want it to be a company that kind of is a leader, or leads the pack, or kind of sounds the bell, so to speak. So, and when we were looking for names to the company, that image kind of stood out really well. It's like, this is a really cool image of this ram with a bell around its neck. It's something that's unique. It's not overdone. I think there's a couple other companies that use sheep or rams in their logos, but I think kind of the bellwether itself is pretty unique. So that's where the name comes from, and most people don't know what that is, so that's why I put it up on the website. So people are always asking. A lot of times that's where I see people clicking on the website, is this link that says, what is a bellwether? Because people want to know what it is. So
yeah,
hopefully the games that we're putting out are bellwether games. We want them to be new, unique, distinct, introduce you to something that you've never played before or have never experienced before.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I'd never heard of it before either, and so that's why I just thought it was so cool. That's why I had to have you kind of talk about it on here, because that's sometimes you hear some of these other game manufacturers out there, but the story behind their names is kind of like what you said there. It kind of defines what kind of games they're going to make, and what kind of thought process the people starting the company. Once you get big enough and you're retired and somebody else is running this company for you, then it might not mean as much to that person, but it means a lot to you and the type of things you're going to pick out. I also thought it was interesting on the on your about page was that you kind of had your mission statement was to produce joy through games.
Yes.
And you had 4 distinct, criteria that you uphold for what is joy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those and how those came about?
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot here because I'm not looking at the 4, but I can do this. Yeah, the first one is discovering something. Discovery, the joy of discovery, finding something new in the game. So whether that's just having some new mechanics or a new theme, or maybe an approach to the game, maybe the game helps you see life in a different way, that's the joy of discovery. Then the second one would be the joy in the quality of the product. So something we focus on is we don't want to just make a game that is just cheap and doesn't mean anything to people, and we want to use quality products, components to the game. We want to use quality design. There's a lot of work that goes into the development process to make sure that it is a good quality game, and it's not just another run-of-the-mill, just a clone of something else that's out there.
Right.
Another element of joy is, I don't know if this is the word I use on the website, but basically engagement, or getting people, having people focused on a social experience altogether. So games that keep people engaged are things that we're focusing on. So a lot of the time you'll see in Bellwether games are games that have like some simultaneous action or some type of mechanic that keeps people engaged around the table. So it's not just I'm taking my turn and now you're taking your turn and going around. And even if it is that case, then we still hope that the game moves at a pace that's fast enough that you're not stuck in analysis paralysis land for hours. And the last of the four is accessibility, and there's joy in accessibility, meaning that it's not something that's exclusive to people. So if you take a game and you put it on the table, I want Bellwether games to be games that people feel like they can introduce to maybe their non-gamer friends or people who haven't played a lot of games, because there's joy in bringing other people along with you and experiencing that. So those four things kind of come together to represent like the joy of the brand and the joy of Bellwether games, hopefully.
Well, the joy I've gotten out of it so far is I've learned to spell Bellwether.
That's good.
I always spelled it like weather, like it's raining weather.
Yeah, and that's the most common misspelling, so we have that domain name as well.
Yeah. So you've just got joy out of just teaching me something. So mission accomplished so far.
I feel proud of that.
Yeah. Well, and you hit those four joys spot on. I actually had your website up, and it was a nice little test for you. You did a great job. And
yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's really kind of cool the ideas, and I really like what you're kind of the way you put those. It actually got me thinking about a little bit and kind of some of the games that I enjoy playing and do the games. I will admit, never heard of you until Bill, our friend with Prolific Games, mentioned that we should have you on and that you had a Kickstarter coming up. And now I've been researching both your company and all the games you've been doing, and I think I'm gonna have to go get a loan so that I can get these games. Or just not tell my wife that I'm getting them, one of the two. Add them to the collection, but it got me looking at the different games that I play and the different ones that I have sitting on the shelf, and did they fit into, did these games kind of fit those same criteria? And it was kind of interesting because some of the games that I have, there's a few of them that I wouldn't sit down and play them with people who haven't played games before because they're a little too difficult to explain.
Yeah, well, I think that's really neat that you did that and looked at your shelf because just for me personally, like I feel like growing up and getting deeper and deeper into the board game industry, it's always been just in my heart, so to speak, to like bring more people in or have better experiences with more people. And those are the kind of the four things I look to is like if these four things are occurring, then I think people are not just they're willing to sit down and play it. Like anybody will sit down and play a game like Uno or something that's really simple, but there's also joy in pushing yourself a little bit and learning more and discovering something a little bit new. So yeah, for me personally, it goes a lot towards like what I personally believe about the industry and how fantastic it is and the benefit that it can give to people to be involved with it. So,
and the beauty of it is,
I mentioned as well, if you're go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to mention to Aaron, we have a discount on all the on the entire lineup of games on our on our Windup War page right now. You can get the fan box, and that's a good way to get all of them if you're interested. So.
Oh, nice! Now I'm gonna have to go look at that one. I haven't looked at all the.
Now he's gonna have to get 2 loans.
Yeah. Right. Now I'm really gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna become like super high backer here and get all your games.
Well, the beauty of it is looking at your library of games. It's not like Fantasy Flight where every game's going to cost you $60-$70. Your games are reasonably priced. Yeah. I think they're great for people who have the limited budget, who want something that's not just Uno, but they don't want to spend $70 either. And I think that fits a perfect niche out there for that.
Yeah, definitely.
I know I'm definitely interested in Swamped. I'm gonna have to pull the cord on that one. And
yeah, that's cool. You mentioned Swamped. It's a really clever, very unique game. Totally unlike any other game that you'll probably play.
Yeah, I watched the video. I've read everything on it. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to have that.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Looks like that's gonna be at our next gaming night there.
It's a good possibility.
Sounds good to me.
I like it. All right, so the whole reason we got you on here was so that we could talk about this Kickstarter, and you still have 21 days to go. You're 50% of the way there, which is a really good sign. I mean, that's good. And it's a game called Windup War, which
Yeah.
in the show notes I actually spelled it wrong. Uh, Wind Up War. It is the cutest combat card game.
Yes, it
So,
is.
is first of all, is the title of the game Wind Up
The time.
War colon the cutest combat card game, or is it just Wind Up War?
No, it's just Wind Up War, but we'll see how far the tagline makes it. You have to have a tagline when you're on Kickstarter. I feel like you have to, because if you don't, then people who maybe don't know a lot about games don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
So when you say this is a card game in the tagline, it helps people understand what it is that is on Kickstarter, because otherwise they might think it could be any of 1,000 different categories of products.
Oh yeah.
But if it fits really well, if people like when we talk about the game, if it keeps coming up, like it just kind of we keep mentioning it, then it'll probably make its way onto the game box or something like that. That's actually what happened to the first game we did, Antidote. It's a game of deduction, deception, and mortality, and that made it on the game box, and that's still something that we reference pretty frequently. But we'll see if Wind Up War keeps that tagline or not.
Well, I have to say it's when I first looked it up when it went live, it's been live for about 9 days now.
About a week, yeah.
Yeah, and when I first looked it up, I'm like, the cutest combat card game. What? And then I started looking at the art and the pictures for it. I'm like, oh, okay, that is actually a perfect description of this game. uh, how so? How was the? Let's start with the art for this thing. How did you pick the art to fit with this?
Well, it's the story kind of all is wrapped together. So I'll actually start with when I met Katie and Jess, because those are the designers of it. So I went to Stonemeyer Games Design Day in St. Louis in 2015. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the event, but
Mhm.
uh, Stonemeyer Games hosts this event where he invites people from around the country, whoever wants to come, and there's about 70 people that show up, and they play test and showcase their designs, and it's really well organized. And Katie and Jess had designed this game called Wind Up War, and it was called something different at the time, and it did really well at the event. There's this rating system at the event where people can rate how well the game, how much they enjoy the games that were played. And there's over 40 games, I think, that are played at the event. And Wind Up War was in the top 10, and people were giving really good reviews about it. So I sat down with them at the event and said, "Hey, show me this game. I'm interested." I'd only done published two designs at this point, and so I was looking for more to pick up.
Mhm.
And so they were gracious enough to sit down with me and show me the game, and it had some really unique mechanics to it. So it had the simultaneous play, which is something I already talked about, how it keeps people engaged with it. And
Mhm.
it had the programming element to it, which is another really interesting game mechanic that also keeps players engaged, because it pushes new gamers or people who are kind of maybe marginal gamers to think a little bit, because you actually have to plan out your moves. So I had those two elements to it, and then the artwork that they used was this really cute artwork, similar to what you see now. They only had one faction produced. It was just the Tin Soldiers, the Tinfantry.
Okay.
And so together we sat down and we started working out how we could develop the game a little bit further and produce more factions and really do more with the same artwork, because the artwork that Katie is the one who did the artwork. Her style is fantastic and great, and I was like, there's no reason for us to choose a different art style if you're already going this direction with it. So that's where that came from. And then when we expanded it from just one faction, the Tinfantry, to now 6 factions, the creative juices really got flowing as far as, well, what would it look like if we had a toy faction that is a bunch of teddy bears? Like, what type of military units would they be if they're teddy bears? And same thing
Right.
with the dinosaurs and the gladiators and so on and so forth. And the more we think about it, we're coming up with even more factions, just as we talk about it and do more brainstorming. So so that's really the kind of the whole story behind it. And all props to Katie, because she's the one who's done the artwork, and she's done a fantastic job just working through it and coming up with creative ideas. And Jess has been helping with the creative ideas as far as that's concerned too.
Oh, and it's I think this is cool. I think this is a lot of fun. So and the artwork for it. is phenomenal. I love the just I like the cute toy aspect, and then the combat side of it just makes
Yeah.
it just fits really well together, and it kind of
Yeah.
gives you it's kind of the Toy Story vibe, but not the Toy
Yes.
Story style.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I've been writing some, press releases for the campaign, and I kind of start it with like, there's this old myth about toys that when they get together, they just kind of drink tea together and they hang out and they're all buddy and they save the world. But the truth is, it goes down. Like
Yeah.
that's what happens really when the kids are away, the toys come out and you can't talk about Fight Club type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was great. I liked it. So, can you tell us a little bit about how the game is played?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of hinted at it a little bit already, but I'll go into more detail. So there are 6 factions in the game, so it's up to 6 players. You can play 2 to 6 players, and you choose your faction. So, like I talked about the Tinfantry. So, Aaron, you might choose the Tinfantry, and you get a box of cards. It's 29 cards. And you take your box and you open it up, and you have everything you need to play in that little box. And you hand out the boxes around the table. So, John might take the Dinosaurs, and I might take the Gladiators, and you dump out your toys on the table, and you're going to choose. You have 6 units that you can choose from. So the infantry have 6 different units. We have what we call the tank or the armor. We have the infantry. We have cavalry. We have special forces. We have the sappers, and then we have the air support. So from those 6 units, you have to assemble an army. So you choose 3 of those units to be your army, and you set up an order. So you say, maybe I want the tank to go first, and then I want the infantry to play, and then I want the air support to go. And so the tank goes up first, and if you've played Bang, you see how you put the character on the bullet card, and that represents their life points. So we have a card that's a heart card, and that represents the hit points. And so
Okay.
each unit has its own unique hit points. So the tank has 5 hearts. So you put up your tank, and it shows that you have 5 hearts remaining. And then you have your next 2 units that will come after the tank is destroyed. So you have to choose wisely about which unit is going to come first and which is going to come second, which is going to come third. Because the units are not all the same. They have different abilities. And
Right.
how those come into play is there are 22 action cards. And the action cards are all color-coded. So a tank, for instance, can play the pink action cards. And the pink action cards are like more powerful attacks. Just as you imagine a tank would be able to do more damage, the tank has an attack, for example, that does 2 damage to the player 1 space to your right. And that's also an element that kind of comes from Bang, is this concept of the people who are sitting around you. That's how you have to count the distance, how far they are away from you, and that's how the damage is going to be dealt around the table.
Okay.
So you're going to choose 5 of your actions, and you're going to place them face down to the right of your active unit. And we're all doing this at the same time. And then whenever all players have finished placing their actions, we're going to say, okay, ready, aim, card 1. And then we all reveal the first card that's next to our active unit. And we all flip it over and see what the action is. So like I was saying before, the tank has that deal 2 damage to the player 1 space to your right. So I'd reveal that and say, this is my action, and I'd deal that damage to the player on my right. But maybe the player on the right is playing one of those cards that's a block card. Well, the block card blocks all damage received from any player. And then maybe the next person around the table is playing shoot 1 damage to the player 2 spaces to their right. And so you have to look over there to see what they're doing. And so you get the idea, but kind of the chaos that can erupt with people
Right.
shooting everywhere, and there's block cards and things like that. So you go through card 1, card 2, card 3, card 4, card 5, assuming that each card number is being played simultaneously with all the
Right.
other cards at the same time. And then after the 5 have been played, then that's the end of the round. And all those cards get discarded unless you've chosen to reload. And when you play a
Okay.
reload card, you reload all the cards that were played prior to the reload card being played. So if you play the reload card at the very end of your action lineup, that 5th card, then you're going to reload all those to your hand. But if you play it somewhere in the middle, you're going to lose some of those cards to the discard pile, which is sometimes something that you want to do. The goal of the game is to either be the last toy army standing, or to be the first toy army to score 3 points. And there's a card in there called a charge card, and basically it's like charging the center of the table. and you can score points that way. And I'm not sure if I'll go into the detail about how you do that, but basically, if you play a charge card when no other players are playing it, then you charge successfully, and you're going to score a point. So that's one of the unique concepts of the game. So you can win one of those two ways. And whenever your units are destroyed, the next unit takes over in your order, and if all three of your units are destroyed, then you're out of the game. And then the space, so to speak, at the table starts to get smaller, because if you have 6 players who are playing and you start to eliminate players, then the distances between those players get smaller as you're playing. There's also some really kind of fun, unique cards in there as well. There's the bomb card, and the bomb card, people always have a lot of fun with it, and only the sappers can play it. So you have to choose the sappers to be part of your army if you want to play the bomb card.
Right.
And in order to play it, you have to set it in one round. You have to let it get to your discard pile. And then once it's in your discard pile, then it's set, and you can program the detonate action in a future round. And as long as that set bomb card is in your discard pile, it will explode and it'll deal damage to all players. And it's a lot of fun when that happens.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So there's also the flame attack and the alpha strike, and there's a retaliate card and things like that. So we've included a bunch of different actions to try to make it as customizable as possible, because each of the different units has, like I was describing earlier, the ability to color code. They have a certain color that they're allowed to play, so the tank can only play the pink actions, whereas the infantry can play only the green actions, which is a more versatile color because there's more actions involved, but the actions are weaker.
I got you.
Versus the Special Forces card, which has a lot less heart points, a lot less health, but the Special Forces card has more block cards, so he's able to program more strategically to block other players' damage. And then the Special Forces also has these flame attacks and the Alpha Strike attack, which are really powerful attacks. So you have to really choose how you're going to, customize your army to give you the kind of experience that you want, and also to be the most effective as you're playing.
Well, and I'll say one of my the favorite part of this game, and just from the way you describe it, is that customizability. Like I'm a big fan of some of the deck building card games, like Legendary or friends of ours that did Tricked Out Hero, in that same kind of sense, where you're trying to play a card game, but you're still trying to play you need the right kind of cards in your set to be able to make that decision. I like that strategy of it. It almost makes it feel like a little bit like chess, where you're trying to outwit your opponent. And I think that's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to sit down with my kids and play this game, because they like these kind of games too. I got my 7-year-old playing chess now, and so this is going to be right up his alley. I think he's going to like this.
Yeah, there's just enough planning and strategy in the game to kind of keep people interested who are more wanting to think more about the game. But then there's also the element of you still have no idea what the other players are going to do. And then there's this kind of chaotic reveal. So there's a blend of this strategy and also this kind of luck element to it as well.
Right. It's great when a plan comes together, and except when it doesn't.
Right.
Which are most of my plans when I play.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a really good game to play with Kip over there, because his plans usually fail in a giant ball of fire.
Well, I'm a read and react player, so if I have to plan ahead, I am done.
Which makes it real fun when the two of us play games, because I'll pick the games that are the planning strategy games, and he'll pick the read and react games, and it's so it works out well for us.
This will be a good blend for your group, yeah.
Yeah. So it's awesome. You've got a lot of good backer levels here. We've got, but I think the best one here is, looking at it, you can get for $16 is all this is going to cost you on Windup or on Kickstarter to get the game and get all the stretch goals. So, what kind of stretch goals do you have in mind for this little project?
Yeah, I think I've already hinted at some of them. We want to increase the number of factions.
Mm-hmm.
That's an expensive stretch goal, so we're probably gonna have to get a little bit higher to get there. But we already have some really fun ideas for new factions that we can include in the game, and that may be possible to increase the player count as well. So that'd be a really cool thing to do. Because of the simultaneous play, it's easy to increase players because all players are doing everything at the same time, so you're not really slowing down the game.
Right.
But some of the simple ones we have, the first one planned is what's called the Kickstarter edition tally cards. So we're going to add a card to each of the factions where you can basically mark off every time you win with that faction. So get out your Sharpie marker and mark off on your tally card the number of wins. So maybe it will find out, even though all the factions, as far as the actual cards they have, are identical, they can play the same actions. I have a feeling that some of those factions are going to win more often than others. And we even ran a contest before the Kickstarter started at our Facebook page where we had this tournament bracket kind of matchup between the different units in the game. And we just flipped a coin to figure out which unit would win in each bracket matchup. But it was amazing how many people were just felt like really strongly that this one unit was going to win versus this other unit. And that was a lot of fun. So I think that'll be a fun addition to the game. And then we also just want to increase some of the component quality, like add a spot UV finish to the front cover and things like that. So those are the main ones. We don't have too many other planned than that, but I think adding the factions will be a really positive, really weighty addition to the game if we can reach that level.
Absolutely. Well, it just gives you one more choice for you to make. Which character or
Right.
which faction do you want to be? That's always going to be a good thing.
Yeah, and who knows what will happen with the campaign, but I mean, there's been some talk too about possibly adding some asymmetry to the factions. We haven't gone too much in depth for that yet, but if things go exceedingly well over the next couple of weeks, then that's something we'll consider in more detail as how we could add some more of that to the game, at least as like some bonus cards.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, this you guys are right on pace. You're at little over 50%. 21 days left to go,
Yeah.
and for anyone who wants to back this thing on Kickstarter, you can click in the, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can look into the description. There will be a link there to the Kickstarter page. We'll also have a link on our Facebook page and in the description of the podcast if you're listening to the audio only portion of this. So we will have this thing all over the place, and let's help these guys get this thing all funded and ready to go because I need my copy. It's
Yeah, I
it's all
appreciate
about
the
me
help.
anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Apparently.
totally. Yeah.
No, this is cool. I like this. So we how do these how did Katie and her partner come up with these ideas to did they try to did they come up with this from scratch, or did they kind of take some of these
Right.
ideas from some other games that they really enjoyed playing?
Yeah, I mean, I should let you talk to them about that, but I've heard, I've talked to them about it before, and I've heard them on other podcasts and things like that talking about it. So they've been designing games for a couple of years, and this is not the first one they've designed. This, I think, this will be the first one that they'll have published, and they designed this as a part of a competition called the DFW Nerd Nighters, and that was a competition in 2015. And they designed it really. I think they designed the concept pretty quickly. They wanted to do a game about wind-up soldiers, and that really tied really well together with the simultaneous play mechanic. Is, well, if we wind them up, then that means all the players will play at the same time, and we'll just see what happens, because that's what would happen if you wound up soldiers and just let it all loose.
Right.
And so they developed that concept more, and that's where the kind of the actions, choosing 5 actions and programming those actions, and then also the theme came about, as a result of their original brainstorming and planning. And they actually, I think they maybe won that contest that they were a part of, or were a top finisher in the contest, and I think that kind of encouraged them and continue to push forward with it. And then going to Stone Mountain Games Design Day was a big part of them continuing to push forward with it and getting more positive feedback and that type of thing. And so yeah, that's kind of where it came about, and it's really cool. They're a really good team. It's been really fun to work alongside them and just kind of see how their brains work and the creative process that they use. And it's fun watching them design new games now after this one. They've done most of the design work for this at this point, so they're working on the next designs that are coming through their process, and it's fun seeing what else they have in mind. So
That's really
it's
cool.
really cool being part of the team. Yeah.
So, as Bellwether is just the producer per se, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the
Publisher,
right term?
producer. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you already have Katie lined up for the next game? Do you already have this duo lined up for game number 2? Start planning this thing out.
We'll see. I don't know. I can't. I wouldn't be able to talk about it at the point at this moment if I did. But
Of course.
I have I've seen some of their other designs, and I have my eye on potentially on some other
Very
things
cool.
they've done.
Very cool.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. So.
Well, I hope that all goes well with this Kickstarter. I'm sure it will, because this is too good of a thing for people not to back. And I look forward to seeing more stuff from Bellwether Games. I'm gonna have to start. We're already between Kip and I. We're already planning on getting several of these games that are on your list, and when the next one comes up, I hope you let us know so that we can have you back on here and help you kickstart that one, or at least just maybe you don't even need to kickstart it. You're going to make so much money off of this game. You're going to just start funding your own stuff, and you're on to bigger and better things, right?
That is the goal, right? The goal is to use Kickstarter as long as a publisher to use as long as we have to until we can start funding things on our own. I would say this though, is we do have another project lined up for January. It's an expansion to Antidote. So if you're interested in Antidote the game, then that's something that we'll be launching this winter. So yeah, keep an eye on that.
Very cool. We are going to have to keep an eye on that. Is that going to be another Kickstarter that you're going to do for that one?
That is the plan right now, yeah.
Sweet. Well, that'll be awesome. So stay tuned to Bellwether Games for another Kickstarter coming up. After this one's funded, though. Get this one funded first.
That's right.
So, one last question for you on this Kickstarter, and it's probably on the page, and I just didn't write it down. What's your timetable for delivery after this is funded in 21 days?
July. So July 2017, where it'll be produced and manufactured and shipped out to all the backers by that point. So
awesome.
We have a ways to go, but we may be able to speed up that process depending on some other factors. But that is where we're at with it right now.
Yeah, that's got to be the challenging part, is that time in between when it's all funded and then when you want to ship it out and trying to make that magic happen.
Something that I do personally and I really value is sending out weekly updates. And so every week, probably it'll be every Wednesday since we started on Wednesday, backers will know exactly where we're at with the stage of the process. So you're not going to have months of radio silence from us where you're not sure what's going on with the project. You'll be hearing every week, even if it's just me chiming in to say, really, we didn't make a lot of progress. This is what we did accomplish. We were hoping to do this, but we weren't able to do that. You'll at least know where we're at. And if there's delays, you'll hear about those delays. So I think that's backers put a lot of trust and faith in us to produce a game and to make a great game. And so the least I can do is communicate back to backers and say, this is where we're at every week. So.
Well, and that's one of the nice things when you get. I will say, as a backer of many things on Kickstarter, the most frustrating thing is when you have no idea what's going on or when it's going to happen. Yeah. So, yeah, it's good to keep everybody in the loop.
You'll never feel that way with Windup War.
There you go. Well, thank you, Dennis, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
For everyone out there, you can find different places. You can find Bellwether Games all over the internet. You can find them on Facebook, facebook.com/bellwethergames. Website is bellwethergames.com. We've got the Kickstarter. You can do a search on Kickstarter for just Windup War. You could probably do a search for Bellwether. I didn't try that one. I'm sure that'll bring up the game too. Are you on Twitter? Anywhere else you want to? People can find
Twitter, you? Bellwether Games at Twitter. Google Plus, we're on at Bellwether Games. Don't get a lot of activity there usually.
Yeah, we're on Google Plus too. That doesn't really happen much.
There's some really good communities on there, but yeah. Then there's also, we have different pages for different fan pages for the games that we have on Facebook, and we're there as well. So those are the main ways.
Very cool. Very cool. Well,
you can email me to Dennis at Bellwether Games or info at Bellwether Games. Both work.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you very much for coming on. We look forward to seeing this funded and getting our copies in the mail.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's really an honor to be on here and chat with you about it, and I appreciate you promoting the game and helping us out with it.
Very good, very good. All right, everybody. Thanks for, of course, you can follow Geekvice on Facebook at facebook.com/Geekvice. You can also find us over on YouTube. You can get there through our Facebook page, or you can go to tiny.cc/Geekvice. And you can follow Kip on Twitter at Kip Killigan, and you can follow myself at Geekvice. And of course, you can always email us if you want to get a hold of Dennis and you forget the email or you decide you don't want to look it up. You can email us at geekvice@gmail.com and we will get you in touch. So thanks everybody for listening to our ramblings, and we will see you next time.
This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.